you, Mr. Johnson. I believe next on our list will be Ms. Ross of North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks so much to all of the witnesses for testifying. It's very, very helpful. Since the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965, Congress has played a fundamental role in protecting the right to vote. And your testimonies highlighted critical avenues for legislative reform that would provide proactive protections for vulnerable voting populations. Ms. Lakin, I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about Purcell, particularly in North Carolina, where the date for the primary was moved up. And it's much earlier than it was 10 years ago. And so Purcell will be particularly important for any challenge to redistricting. We've heard your testimony that in practice, the federal court's application of Purcell principle contributes to, rather than reduces, confusion among voters and elected officials. Should the proximity of the election be a decisive factor for a court when determining whether to grant equitable relief in Section 2 cases, and why or why not?
Thank you for that question, for opportunity to weigh in here. The proximity to an election should not be the decisive factor in denying or granting relief in the context of voting rights litigation. At issue is the fact that you might be subjecting voters to a discriminatory regime that, and the fact that voters who may rely on an order, who need this an injunction where there's been a showing of the fact that that election rule might be unconstitutional, very likely is constitutional, that violates the VRA, and that rule may be subjecting voters, that rule may be in effect to subject voters to a discriminatory regime in voting. And so the fact alone that of election rule is happening close to an election shouldn't be sufficient, because you should be taking into account all the different aspects of equities, including the public interest in expanding access to free and fair elections.
Thank you very much. And I would now like to yield the balance of my time to the esteemed Vice Chair of the committee, Congresswoman Deeb.